watching Halton News right here on your TV. It's Wednesday, May 6th. I am your host, Sherry Ford, in for Jessica Kading. 18 more people are confirmed positive for COVID-19 since yesterday, and 2 probable cases have also been confirmed. So our new total number of cases that Halton region has reported since the onset of the virus is 562. As well, 1 more Oakville resident has passed away, bringing the total number of deaths in Halton to 23. According to Halton.ca, Oakville has the biggest number of cases with 170. It also has the largest number of recoveries with 141 so far. Halton Hills has been hit the hardest with 10 deaths. Joining me now is Pam Damoff, the MP for Oakville North Burlington. Pam, thanks for joining us today. So Canada's Chief Public Health Officer, Dr. Tam, updated the status today of COVID-19 cases in Canada with almost 62,500 cases. Canada is set to complete its million tests for COVID-19 sometime within the next 24 hours. But we're still falling short on testing in some provinces. What can be done here?
Well, thanks for the question, and thanks for having me on again. Testing, like so many things in our country, it involves all 3 levels of government: federal, provincial, and municipal. So we certainly oversee to ensure that the tests are accurate and safe. We will help to procure the tests that the provinces can then purchase and supply them with. The province is actually the one that is responsible for the actual testing, and that's why you saw yesterday Premier Ford was quite upset with the level of testing that's happening in Ontario, and then you get down to the region of Halton, and I know that there's an amazing team of 5 Halton paramedics right now that are going into all the long-term care homes and testing every single person, staff and resident in every long-term care home across Halton, and that work is ongoing. So it actually involves all levels of government. And so something like you saw just in the last few days, where a company in Ottawa that had been approved for one of the quick tests that didn't have to be sent to a lab, they had retooled their original test, which was DNA testing, but they found that the results weren't accurate. So Health Canada has sent it back and said it's not working as it was intended. So that's the kind of thing we do, is sort of quality control, and we help with procurement, which but the actual testing is actually the provincial government.
Okay. Now, Tuesday, Prime Minister Trudeau released $252 million in support for the agri-food sector, far less than the $2.6 billion deemed necessary by the Canadian Federation of Agriculture. How's this been received?
Well, I think we need to realize that this is a first installment. We know that many of the producers in the agri-sector were in an emergency situation. The processing plants are down, as we all know. Cargill in Alberta had a major outbreak. So people were actually holding livestock that they were going to have to put down because there was no way to process it. People had a surplus of food that they couldn't get rid of because our restaurants are closed. So there were a few components of the announcement yesterday, part of which was paying people to keep their livestock around. Also, the federal government purchasing food and dairy to provide to food banks, because we know that food bank use is way up from what it was previously. So it's going to help in the immediate situation for our farmers and the agriculture sector, which is important for us, whether we're a farmer or not, because we need this to buy we need food, and we need to make sure that our supply chain for food is strong and reliable.
Now, it's Mental Health Week this week here in Canada, and never has awareness been more important than right now during this pandemic, from children to seniors to frontline workers to people who are unemployed right now. Yeah,
and it is Mental Health Week, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because we're seeing more and more people really having a hard time with their situation, and for all the reasons that you mentioned, and quite honestly, I think we started to get rid of the stigma around mental health, but we need to make sure that people are supported. And I've talked on the show before about Kids Help Phone, which is available for not only young kids but young adults as well. Really do a tremendous job supporting young people. And the federal government just launched a Wellness Together Canada app where you can get mental health resources. And locally, we've got organizations like the Reach Out Center for Kids, the Distress Center, where people can get information and reach out when they're struggling. And I think that's probably the most important thing that people need to remember, is that they need to reach out. And during some of the things I've been doing, because boredom is certainly a thing that we're all experiencing, and a little bit too much time, I've been doing Facebook Lives with some really interesting people. Today I spoke to Rob Oliphant, who is the parliamentary secretary responsible for bringing all these Canadians back to Canada from other countries. And then earlier this week, I spoke with Eric Smith, who's been broadcasting the Raptors for over 20 years. And we just talked about what the world is like without sports, and talked a lot about the Raptors, but just as a way to get information to people, but also give people something to do for a few minutes to sort of get their mind off the pandemic. But there are resources. I think people just need to reach out.
I will be going back and watching your Facebook Lives for sure, because I've been watching a little too much news. So thank you for joining us, Pam. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for finding the time, and stay well out there. The province loosened the reins a little bit more today. Premier Doug Ford announced that certain businesses can reopen for in-store shopping. Starting this Friday at noon, you can go into garden centers and nurseries. On Saturday at noon, you can go into hardware stores and safety supply stores. Big news starting Monday, retail stores with a street entrance will be allowed to reopen for curbside pickup. But Ford warned strict rules will remain in place.
As we watch the trends carefully every day, as we see the number of new cases inch downward, we've been preparing to get more and more of our economy working again safely and cautiously. Because when it comes to reopening our economy, I'd rather be safe than sorry. We've been working around the clock to make sure we're ready. We're using this time to help businesses adapt to the new environment we face. That's why over the past few weeks, we've laid the groundwork for the gradual and safe reopening. We released a framework with clear public health criteria to meet before proceeding to each stage of reopening. Working in partnership with our health and safety associations, we've released over 60 workplace safety guidelines to help businesses protect their employees and customers.
MPP for Wellington Halton Hills, Ted Arnott, weighed in on this next step of opening up the economy.
Today, the government announced some additional reopenings that are planned for the weekend, including garden centers and nurseries, as well as hardware stores and safety supply stores. Some essential construction is going to be allowed more so, and then retail stores are going to be allowed to have curbside pickup starting on Monday. And I think that many of our constituents will be pleased to hear this news, but at the same time, again, we can't leave them with the message that it's business as usual. We still have to adhere to the public health recommendations and guidelines, even as some of these new businesses are allowed to open over the next few days.
The Ford government is scrapping plans of the redesign of Ontario's license plates, saying they will go back to the old white "Yours to Discover" plate. The new blue plate that the government began issuing on February 1st is said to be hard to read under specific lighting conditions, mostly at night. At this point, it is unclear whether the blue plates, which remain valid, will be recalled. During this pandemic, the town of Milton is making it easier for residents to park without worrying about the possibility of getting a ticket. Melissa Candelaria reports.
With more people working from home, many driveways are looking more like this. We are also seeing more cars parked like this. Now, normally there are restrictions on how long you can be parked on the street, but in the town of Milton, Councillor Rick DiLorenzo says those restrictions have been relaxed.
More people are self-isolating, so the town recognizes that there's more of a demand now for residents to leave their cars on the street than previously. So if you're at a residential street, parking's normally only allowed for like 5 hours, and now you can park overnight. You can leave your car on the street as long as you're not parking that causes a safety issue, or as long as you're not parking in a no parking stopping area.
DiLorenzo also says the town will keep restrictions relaxed for as long as it takes.
There's not a date yet that's been set on when that relaxation will be removed, but it's probably going to be around for some time. As long as we're self-isolating, as long as we're asking people to stay home, the town of Milton has relaxed the parking restriction.
Not only have they eased restrictions on street parking, DiLorenzo says the town has also made sure that public transit is free.
We're still running transit because we recognize there are a lot of seniors or a lot of essential workers that are using transit to get to work. So right now, public transit is an option for people who are going through a financial difficulty right now.
And if you are going to use the bus, you just have to make sure you enter through the back doors. Reporting for Halton News, I'm Melissa Candelaria.
Now, if you live in Halton Hills, Oakville, or Burlington, don't worry. They've relaxed parking restrictions there as well. Again, payment isn't required for on-street or municipal parking until further notice, and time limits have been relaxed in residential areas. The Oakville Chamber of Commerce has been hosting a weekly webinar called COVID Conversations Wednesday at noon right here on your TV. In this week's episode, John Porter, the founder and CEO of Barter Pay Canada, explains how businesses can turn inventory and excess capacity into the products and services they need.
We've got like a business, for example, in the Halton region who owns a restaurant. He's about to paint his restaurant while he's closed. But rather than dipping into $5,000 or $10,000 of his precious cash to hire the painter, he's simply leveraging Barter Pay, offering up $5,000 or $10,000 worth of gift cards to his restaurant, banking those credits, and then utilizing the credits with a painter within the system to offset that cost. So he's actually conserving cash today, and he's paying off that painting contract over time at his food cost, all the while, based on the gift cards being redeemed, it's driving brand new unsolicited business right back to his location.
Virtually everything came to an abrupt stop when COVID-19 made its way into Canada. Schools were closed, only essential stores remained open, construction was almost at a standstill, and we were told to stay inside. But some good news for Oakville. Oakville Mayor Rob Burton says the new Northeast Elementary School is right on track to open for this upcoming school year.
While we're on the topic of children and families, I was hoping that I could pick our provincial representative's brain really quickly about the North Oakville School. I know
good idea.
Had a lot of,
Go right at it.
I know both Councillor Farmer and I have gotten a number of questions and requests for understanding about what the progress is on the new Northeast 2 school that has actually been renamed for the Good Doctor here in North Oakville. Can you give us a little bit of an update, Effie, on how that progress is going to be continuing over the next little bit?
So thanks, Jazz. This is kind of a lob to me. I really appreciate the question. So as you know, before the COVID crisis, the construction on the school was going very, very well. And it's planned that it will in fact be open this fall, 2020. Despite the fact that there were a number of categories of businesses where the emergency order indicated that a number of businesses were not essential services and therefore had to close down. When it came to construction, dealing with schools and municipal works and that kind of thing, those essential services were allowed to continue. So I'm very optimistic that we're really on track to open for the fall 2020. Now, I would also
go ahead.
Both Jazz and Pavan know Ward 7 is such a growing community. Many new young families have moved in, and in fact, our educational needs are even greater than the one Northeast Oakville school that's coming in. So I'm hopeful that with all of our collective efforts, we'll be able to see more new schools coming in the coming years.
You can hear more from the mayor tonight on the latest edition of Oakville Matters right here on your TV at 7:30. Now it's time to take a short break here on Halton News, but we'll be right back to introduce you to a young local chef who's about to go prime time. Welcome back to Halton News right here on your TV. An up-and-coming chef in Oakville got to show off her talents in the first Canadian version of a cooking competition. But what's different about this chef? Well, she's only 11. Melissa Candelaria has more on that story.
It was definitely the best experiences of my life.
That best experience 11-year-old Kinza Rizvi is referring to is competing in Food Network Canada's Junior Chef Showdown. Rizvi says being entered into the competition in the first place was quite a surprise.
My mom just saw a Facebook ad saying for kids who are 9 to 13 who love to cook. So at that time I was really interested in the kitchen, and so she put an application in for me. And when we got the first call for a phone interview, that's when she told me she had applied. So I was like, at that time we still didn't know it was like a competition. We just thought it was like a local talent show.
Much like adult cooking competitions, these kids have to complete specific tasks and fight for the top spot. Rizvi says there were some challenges she had to overcome.
I'd say the pressure and taking critiques in a positive way. It was a lot for you, and just when you're cooking and everything, you want to produce your best dish. We have 40 minutes for the main cooking challenge, and then for the skills challenges, we have around 15 minutes, sometimes 10. So it was really tight. You had to fit everything in, and a lot of the episodes, if you go and watch, everyone gets really stressed. Chaos in the kitchen.
Now, despite the stress, cooking continues to be a passion for Rizvi, a passion she's had since she was little.
I've been around the kitchen, playing in the kitchen. I think when I was about 2 or 3, I used to go over to my grandmother's house, my dad's mom, and she would have all these pots and pans and utensils and whatnot lined out for me and encourage me to play with them. So I would sit there for hours just playing by her feet. And I think the first words I learned was cook, cook, cook. So in the future, I definitely know that I want to build my culinary skills and my repertoire. And I don't know exactly what that means, if that's like having a restaurant or being a nutritionist. I don't know, but I just know that I really want to focus on my culinary skills and continue to cook.
Rizvi has a shot at winning $25,000 and a family vacation from Air Transat should she become champion. To follow her journey and cheer her on, tune in to Junior Chef Showdown on Food Network Canada on Sundays at 9 p.m. Reporting for Halton News, I'm Melissa Candelaria.
Turning to weather now, and the not so great 5-day forecast. Thursday, a 40% chance of rain, a high of 12, dipping down to -3 at night. And then it appears that Mother Nature is conspiring to keep us all inside. Flurries are in the forecast for the next 5 days after that. A high of only 6 on Friday with an overnight low of -5. A 40% chance of flurries or rain on Saturday and Sunday, a high of 8 both days. And Monday, more possible flurries, a high of only 7. To business now, and Ontario's Minister of Economic Development, Job Creation and Trade, Victor Fedeli, has announced that Oakville-based Verox Technologies is the first successful recipient of the Ontario Together Fund, giving the company an $850,000 grant. Verox Technology has retooled their assembly lines to make disinfectant a critical item during this pandemic. Now let's take a look at today's closing markets. Thank you for joining us here on Halton News. We need to take a short break, but we'll be right back with an update from the Burlington Food Bank. Welcome back to Halton News right here on your TV. I'm your host, Sherry Ford, in for Jessica Kading. During this COVID-19 crisis, we have been receiving daily updates from the Burlington Food Bank. As you can imagine, more people than ever are in need right now, so if you can, please donate and also give to charity food drives.
We just want to thank the community for supporting us. We ran our numbers and realized that we've been able to help a tremendous amount of people here in Burlington. We were able to help about 650 families. A little bit under 1,500 people receive food support from us because of all of the support that we've had from the community, and we've been able to do that fairly seamlessly. We have a great group of volunteers that help us to do that. We want to thank a few different people that have been doing food drives for us. Burlington Dads are doing a bottle drive and a food drive this Saturday, as well as the Burlington Gymnastics Club and the Gift of Giving Back have been longtime supporters for us. They did a food drive and it helped us out tremendously. Again, the food drives that are going on are a huge help to us. We're not overly stocked here. Really what's happening is food is coming in and food is going right back out to help all the families here in Burlington that are in need. So again, thank you so much for your support, and you'll see different food drives that you can help us out. We really, really appreciate it.
And it's not just people who need a little help these days. The Conservation Halton Foundation has launched the Mount Spurg Animal Food Fund to help feed the animals at Mount Spurg Conservation Area during COVID-19. Mount Spurg is home to more than 60 animals, from owls to horses and snakes. It costs about $200,000 each year to feed and care for the animals, and that helps teach school children, summer camp participants, and park visitors about conservation and agriculture. The parks depend on entrance fees to feed the animals, and right now the parks are closed due to COVID-19. For more information, please go to conservationhalton.ca. Be sure to stay tuned right here on your TV. Tonight in Burlington and Oakville at 7 o'clock is Sports Week with Steve Foxcroft. And at 8 p.m. on your TV in Milton and Halton Hills is a new episode of Auto Experts with Kirk Robinson. And that's it for Halton News. For more information or to catch more stories, head to our website at yourtv.tv or email us at haltonnews@cogeco.com. Thank you for watching Halton, and have a great night.